I got some tea to spill, so if you're ready to chill, take a jail pill.
Hi, I wish you could hear how many times I just started the intro. I should just leave it in there one time. I was like, hi, hey, hi. And none of them felt right. So I just kept starting it over, but now I'm just going to do it like this because it feels more natural. Hi, welcome to Take a Jill Pill. Okay, there you go. That was for you. That's a little behind the scenes into the making of this podcast, which is fitting because we're going to do behind the scenes show today. I don't know, maybe I'll make this a series. Do you like how I say things like that every week? Because I'm still figuring this podcast out, but we're going to do behind the scenes of the music industry today. This is going to be a part one because as I was planning it, I was like, there's no way I can do all this in one episode. So there will be future parts, at least a part two, probably more to this episode. I don't know when, maybe next week or maybe like down the road. But this is going to be a fun episode today, behind the scenes of the music industry. So hang tight for that, okay? That was like a hard open. That's what they call a hard open. Before we get into everything, I do need to touch on a couple things, okay? Number one, last week we talked about CERN, if you missed it, go back and listen, and the conspiracy behind that shutting down and whether people are being affected by it. And I really do think I'm being affected by it. I have had crazy dreams. I haven't been sleeping that well, but when I do sleep, I'm having these crazy specific dreams about specific people too, like some of whom I haven't seen in like years. You know what I mean? And I'm like, why are they in my dream? And they're not like good friends of mine or anything. It's just like random people I knew in the past, super weird. And then definitely I think time is going slower. I don't know. That just is how I feel. Like the weeks are going fast, but the moments are going slow. I don't know, guys. I need help. And then the other thing that's super weird about, I don't know if anyone's dealt with this. Somebody said this on TikTok, so maybe I was like influenced by this, but they were like, I'm seeing like weird things in my peripheral vision. And I kind of have too recently. And I'm like, is that, I don't know. I think I was on the phone or I got an audio message from my friend the other day. She's a therapist and she's the best. And we just send audio messages back and forth sometimes. And she was like, I was telling her, I'm like, it's just like isolating sometimes, like the season that I'm in and yada, yada. I'm giving you way too much information. But I was like, yeah, it can be like just a lot to be that isolated, even though I like to be isolated. And she was like, yeah, do you ever get like weird when you're isolated? Like when I'm isolated, I can tend to get like super weird. And I'm like, are you calling me out on that? Or like, am I reading into that? Do you think I'm being weird? I know I'm being weird. Okay. CERN. That was I told you last week we'd do a little CERN update. So there you go. Another thing I want to talk about real quickly. I know you guys have a lot of questions about the music industry and maybe you don't care about Kylie Jenner and her Dunkin' sponsorship, but I do. And so I'm going to talk about it because why? Why is Kylie Jenner, and listen, nothing against the Kardashians. They might even make an appearance in today's episode. One of them might. Not like them, but like a story about them. Okay. But Kylie Jenner and Dunkin', that's kind of like when Sabrina Carpenter was the Dunkin' spokesperson. It's not a match for me. That's a no from me, dog, as well. Like, aren't there some New Englanders that could be like great spokespeople for Dunkin'? Like, I know there's been Ben Affleck and that whole thing, and that's great. As far as the females, they're picking these unreachable pop stars like Sabrina Carpenter and Kylie Jenner, and I don't have anything against them as people or artists or anything, but I don't get the mix. I don't get the match there. There's this commercial and Kylie, it's like all these pink drinks too, and I'm like, guys, this is Dunkin', okay? Relax. It's iced coffee and like donuts, okay? It's not pink drinks and sparkly matcha, whatever, But Kylie Jenner is the person. And she was like, when Dunkin' called me, I was like, what's a Dunkin'? And that's funny, but it's like, it's probably true. She's not drinking Dunkin'. I am. Take a Jill pill. Take a chance on me, Dunkin'. Let me promote you. You can sponsor this podcast. Like, I'll let you. It's fine. I'm from New England. It works. You know what I mean? I actually go to Dunkin'. Anyway, it's my rant about, I don't know. It just doesn't fit for me, but that's fine. To each his own. In other news, real quick, I do have a new Instagram follow that I love, and I just want to share it with the world. It's a small account. I don't know how it came up on my algorithm, but her name is Debbie Eyelashes. And it's this woman, this older woman who's from New England. I don't know exactly where she is, but her video that I first saw, she was in New Hampshire. So I don't know if she's from New Hampshire, but she's like a typical New England woman, you know, older, like your grandma kind of, great aunt, something like that. And she did this video where she drew eyelashes on her glasses, like just with a Sharpie, and she puts them on. She's like, I do this when I don't want to wear makeup. And I don't know why I just sounded Southern, because she's not Southern. But she'll put her glasses on with these eyelashes, and it does look like she has fake lashes, kind of. And she'll be like, I'm Debbie Eyelashes. I'm here on the 4th of July. We're at the lake. We're having a wicked good time with my family. And I just hope you have a great day. And I don't know why. It's so silly and kind of dumb, but I love it. It's like my new, and it just goes to show you, anything goes out there on Instagram, on social media. Like, you never know what's going to hit. So keep doing your weird stuff, guys. Because Debbie Eyelashes, I want to be friends with her. I might try to find her. I don't know. And I'm also like, why didn't I think of that? But Jill Eyelashes wouldn't have the same ring as Debbie Eyelashes, you know? Debbie is such a New England name. I don't know if it's New England. For me, it is. It's like you just know a woman named Debbie who looks like this Debbie. It's brilliant. Anyway, that's all. I just had to share that with the world because Debbie Eyelashes needed a shout out. Okay. All right. Let me give you a rundown of today's show. I'm going to get to it because there's a lot to cover here. Today's episode you voted on Instagram. I said, what do you want to hear? Do you want to do like another advice show? Should we do a cult? Should we do anything else? And 70%, really 69% of you who voted for behind the scenes music industry. And I'm glad to share that with you guys. I want to talk about what you want to hear about. So you submitted a ton of questions. I'm going to cover some of them. I'm going to kind of go through a little of my story of getting into the music industry, some top moments, some behind the scenes, what life is like when you're touring, when you're off the road, when you're overseas, all these things. And I don't know, I'm just going to go for it. So we'll see how that goes. Then we will do top 5. I'm going to do the top 5 venues that I've been lucky enough to play shows at. And it's hard because there's a lot more than top 5. I feel like even as I just was saying that, I wrote them out and then I'm like, oh, I forgot one. So I don't know. We might have to readjust that list. Maybe it's top 6. But I will say this. I was going to do top 5 celebrity encounters. I'll save that for part 2. I know a lot of people want to know about that, but I have to think about it more. So that's what I would call a little teaser for part 2. Okay, so we'll do that. Then we'll do listener questions, which there are plenty of. And then we will take a Jill pill all together. Okay, all together now. All right, here we go. For years, people have asked me, what is the music industry really like? Like, what is true? What's fake? What surprised you most about it? What was it like touring with famous people? And first of all, that's a lot of questions in one, sort of, you know? And then there's just so much. I mean, I spent really like 20 years doing it, like full time. And so while I'm still dabbling in the music industry, I'm not doing it full time anymore. So I have to like go back and think about all this. So I wrote a lot of stuff out so that I'd remember, because you live a lot of life when you're touring and living in LA and Nashville and in this industry. So I'm going to miss some stuff, but that's why we're going to have multiple parts. So before I start just answering those questions, I know if you know me or you follow me, you know a lot of my story, but I'm going to assume that there's people listening who don't really know much about me or my story. So let me give you a little rundown. So these are the Cliff's Notes. Cliff's Notes. That's such a hard thing to say. Remember Cliff's Notes? Is it Cliff Note? I don't think it's Cliff Notes. I think it's Cliff's Notes. Remember those, like in high school when you had to, like, we don't need that anymore because it's just like chat and Wikipedia and all that. But Cliff's Notes were a big part of my education growing up. Anyway, this could be a hard episode to get through because I have already been on tangents and we're just a couple minutes in here. All right, Cliff's Notes. I went to a music school during college, a semester where you study music. I met Kate, who was my roommate there, and we formed a band, a duo called Jill and Kate. I know, very clever name. And we graduated from college. We made an album. We moved to LA to try to make it in the music industry. While we were living in LA, we played a show, and Kelly Clarkson came to that show. She heard us sing, like she listened to our set, and in our set we played Behind These Hazel Eyes, which was one of her songs, obviously. We covered a little clip of that. And she was like, afterwards, she was like, you sound like my background vocals. Would you want to sing backup for me? Which we had never imagined doing. We wanted to do our own solo career or like duo career. We had never thought about being in the music industry in any other way than just being the main act. But we were like, yes, we're going to do that. Obviously, we were big fans of her and it was a great opportunity. So we did that. We signed on and we ended up touring with her for about 6 years. We, in that time, moved to Nashville, continued doing our own music, eventually left Kelly to do our own music full time, but also after that, did a few other gigs backing up other artists just for shorter periods of time, writing a lot in Nashville, opening for artists in Canada and the US, and touring overseas in the UK, just as Jill and Kate. That's like a very brief overview. Throughout that time, we also made a bunch of albums and did music videos and all the things that you do as an artist. So that's Cliff's Notes. That was a pretty good Cliff's Notes, I think. I don't know. That being said, there's so much even before we met Kelly that we were doing in the music industry. There's so much during that time and then afterwards as well. So I think a lot of people think of my story or our story as like, you sang backup for Kelly Clarkson, and we did, and that was an amazing experience. And we also did a lot of other stuff that was in the music industry and learned from all of those experiences. Like whether we were doing it really small at like a tiny little bar in Pocatello, Idaho, or, Madison Square Garden or something like that. We were able to do kind of every level of the industry in a lot of ways. Not every level, but we got to see kind of the spectrum. So that's the gist, in case you have no concept for who I am or what this podcast is. There you go. Now, one of the questions I get asked the most is like, was it what you imagined it to be? When you got to the level of like playing arenas and theaters and all that stuff, and you were touring on buses and flying and all that, was it what you imagined it would be? And like the truth of that is, I don't know if I ever did imagine what it would be like, because I don't think I ever let myself dream that big that I would play at that level. I didn't even think I would play in front of people. Like I thought maybe I could do songwriting or producing. But when I got to the point where I'm like playing these huge shows or even smaller shows before we worked with Kelly, I never really knew what it was. And I think that's kind of a good thing, because I didn't imagine it to be I watched TRL growing up and like, I went to like In Sync shows and saw that, but I didn't picture myself really being on that stage. I don't think. If I did, I don't remember thinking that. And you know what, honestly, I don't think I let myself, because I don't think I let myself dream that big for myself, which is kind of interesting to think about now. And maybe a good lesson for you as you're listening to this. It's like, don't limit what's possible for you. Whether you're 20, like I was, or however old, or 60, or Debbie Eyelashes, like whatever age you are, don't limit what could be in front of you, because I had no clue what was coming. So it wasn't how I imagined it, because I never imagined it. And maybe that's good. I don't know. But I also never imagined the smaller side of it. Like before we got the gig with Kelly, we were touring in a van, a minivan, a Chrysler silver minivan that was like old and like crappy. It did the job for us. But it was two girls, in our early 20s, driving around the country with like sound equipment and guitars, and staying with people, eating at Subway like every meal, because you could get the Veggie Delight sandwich, like the foot long, for like, I think at that time it was like $4.99 or something, and we would just split it. We would like load it up with veggies and split it, and that was our main meal on the road before we actually made any money doing this, because it was so cheap and it was sort of healthy, and they're everywhere, Subways. So that was like not glamorous, you know what I mean? We also played shows like at bars that we had no business being in, like Uncle Buck's Rock and Roll Grill outside of Chicago, where there was a biker gang not gang, I guess kind of the gang, but this venue was like half of a butcher shop and then half of like a music venue. And we went to play a show there. Don't ask why. That was where we could book before we didn't have any clout at this time. We were just like Jill and Kate, like showing up, and nobody knew us from anyone. So we show up and there's all these like biker dudes, and then there's a baseball team there from, I think, like a college team. I should fact check all of this with Kate because I'll correct any wrong facts in my next episode if she's like, hey. But yeah, it was a baseball team and they came in to watch us. And the butcher shop had this rule where if you were a new artist playing there, you had to get up on stage and wear their hat from their butcher shop, which was like a trucker hat that said fresh meat on it. And, you know, I don't know if I would do that now. If someone was like, yeah, you have to do this, I'd be like, no. But then we're like, okay. So it wasn't glamorous. Like you think, oh, you're touring, you're doing music. And all of our friends at that time had just graduated college. A lot of them were getting married. A lot of them were having their first kid. They were going into like corporate jobs, or they were teachers and nurses and all of these things. And we were like living in this van wearing fresh meat hats and like playing shows to people who, you know, we were lucky if we sold 10 CDs at $10, you know, or something like that. And I wouldn't change it for anything. It was an amazing experience, but it was not glamorous, you know, but we learned how to like work hard, even though it wasn't the kind of work you might assume someone learns to work hard in. Because I think everyone thinks like, oh, it's just like musicians and they're out there partying and whatever. And there's some truth in that. But at the end of the day, like nobody was funding it for us. We had to figure it out. So we had all these kind of side hustle jobs along the way and we figured it out. So we had a lot of fun, but we also did work really hard and we were up really late doing these silly shows just to get experience. And I'm so glad we did that before we did kind of, if you will, hit it big or make it, however you want to say it, to where we were playing on a level where we didn't have to do all that grunt work. But I feel like it helped me understand what goes into a show, because you go to a show and you see the band, the artist, the flashiness, the lights, all the things. But there are so many people behind the scenes, like working their butt off physically, mentally. They're staying up late, they're getting up early and doing all the work for the artists, you know? And if you don't start out doing that a little bit, I don't think you understand and appreciate how much goes into it. So that was kind of how we started. And that side of the music industry is its own whole thing. You meet a lot of great people and cool people and rough people. And I don't know, it was just like, you're out there just like chasing the dream. And I loved that part of it. I really loved that part of it. It wasn't easy, but we were young and we could do it, you know? And I don't know, as I'm talking about it, I really don't talk that much about that part of this whole adventure because people just jump to the Kelly thing. Like, oh my gosh, you were like playing the Daytona 500. That was your first show with her. And it was, but we had done years of this other thing, this other way of doing it before that. And it's sometimes I forget even to bring it up. Like I forget some of the stories until I really sit down and think about it because, you know, as you continue to grow, like to live your life, new stories take over and you kind of forget, oh yeah, and we did that, I did that. And it's good to remember things like playing the county fair next to the cows, you know, or having like one person in the audience and it's the bartender, you know, like that. We did that a lot and it humbles you. It keeps you humble, honestly. And it keeps you it makes you have to be persistent in this industry because we could have never gotten the Kelly gig. I still think we had the fight in us to like, we wanted it so bad. We wanted to make music and do this thing. We would have kept going. Obviously, when Kelly asked us to sing backup for her, that was the big break that people imagine happens when you're grinding like this. That doesn't happen for everyone, you know? And I am so lucky, I feel like, and fortunate that did happen for us because it changed the whole trajectory of my life. But I have a lot of friends who are way more talented than me, way more. They deserve all the things in music and art and all the things. And they didn't get the break, And so you can't force that. I don't know what it is. I don't know why that happens to some people and not others. But I just count myself fortunate that it did for me because it led into a lot more opportunities. And so that's kind of a little backstory on what the music industry was like before the Kelly level. I feel like we went from like level D to level A kind of quickly. You know what I mean? And so what's funny is further down the line after we left Kelly and we kept doing our own thing, then we filled in the middle parts where like B and C, not that there really are levels like that, but I'm just giving a visual of like, if we started the bottom, then we jumped to the top. And then afterwards we kind of did stuff in the middle. So that's why I feel like I've kind of played on every level of this industry, because after we got to play with Kelly, we did have more clout. We could get shows that were more middle of the road, versus fresh meat at Uncle Buck's Rock and Roll Grill. Not that we're above that. I would go back there and play right now if you asked me to. So you can't be above anything in this industry. People are, but you can't be, and it's a gift to just be able to play music for other people. I genuinely believe that and mean that. And if people will listen, even better. But sometimes they don't. And that's okay too. If you love it enough, you're going to do it anyway. And if people listen and connect, that is so rewarding. Okay, so that was a little Hallmark moment for you. But anyway, the next thing people ask, some of you asked this in your questions. So you get on the road with Kelly, what is a day in the life like when you're on tour? Okay, well, let me tell you, you're living on a bus and in a hotel room. And we would do that for 3 or 4 months at a time, a lot of times. So let me just give you an example of a day. Let's say we're in the middle of a tour, okay? And I'm going to pick a city. We are in Indianapolis. I don't know why, just we are. And we stay in, let's say we stayed in a hotel the night before, okay? So we stayed in a hotel. I wake up, I have my bag, I have my big ski bag, the snowboarding bags, that's the type of bag that I traveled with. And I have my whole life in that bag because it's a few months that I have everything I need in there. I wake up, it's not early. I'm an early riser now. I'm up at 5 or earlier sometimes. But on the road, no, I would get up at 10 or 11 or 12. It's not normal because your work day starts at 4 p.m. And then you're playing the most exhilarating show of your life at 9 o'clock or later at night. And to come down off of that, it's not easy, And so let's say I woke up in the hotel at 10 a.m. I go down to the lobby. I meet a few of the bandmates or whoever. We text, we go grab a coffee, grab breakfast, maybe go to the gym or take a run or walk, come back, take a shower, pack up all my crap, pack up my whole bag. And then the bus comes to the hotel, picks us up. We go to the bus, drag our bags, throw them under the bay, get on, ride to the venue, which is usually pretty close, maybe 20, 30 minutes, depends where you're staying. But drive to the venue, get off the bus, take your little bag, because you also have to have a little bag, like a carry-on that, you go in and out of the venue with. So take that little bag, go in, go to catering. That's lunch. What's for lunch today? I don't know. Every city, it's a different caterer. Well, depends on the tour. Some tours travel with catering. Some of them, you get local catering at each venue. So you never know what you're going to have to eat, if it's going to be good or bad, but you go in and it's usually pretty good. At least with Kelly, it was pretty good. Some other artists that I've toured with have been hit or miss, but you go in, you can usually always get at least a sandwich or cereal or salad. You can usually, it's sort of like a cafeteria at college or something like that. Smaller, but you go in, you eat, you hang out for a little while. Then for us, you might go learn a new song in the dressing room or work on something for the show. And if you didn't have anything new to learn that day, a lot of times we would write in the dressing room. So we'd have, Kate and I would have our own dressing room, and I'd always have a guitar in there, and we would work on our own music, whether that be writing or just practicing. And then around, let's say 4 o'clock. So you're killing a few hours in the afternoon. People do it different ways. This is just my experience. Not everyone, this isn't everyone's experience. Again, the people who are working in production or guitar techs or the crew, the lighting, all of those, the sound people, all of those people are not having the leisurely day that I'm having. Okay. I just want to make that clear. As the artist, as a band member, you do have a lot of downtime, which can be good or bad. Okay. So anyway, around 4:00, the whole stage is set up because those people have been working since early in the morning, setting it all up. And you go out and you have sound check, which consisted of like running through maybe 2 or 3 songs, practicing a new one if we had a new one that night, making sure our ears, everything sounds okay. And just so that everyone on the crew is ready for the show when it comes later in the night. So that takes, I don't know, half an hour to an hour, sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. Warm up your vocals a little bit. Then it's time for dinner. Like, there's a lot of eating on tour. So you go back to catering and it's time for dinner. At this point in the day, you still have like 4 hours until, if not more, until you actually go on stage. So people do different things. Some people would go out and take a run, or there would be maybe a gym. People would do that, or FaceTime your families, or do whatever you want to do during that time. But we didn't really have to start doing like hair and makeup until after dinner. So you have dinner, then we go and we do hair and makeup, which was usually like an hour or 2. Kate and I did our own hair and makeup on the road. You do some warm-ups vocally, practice whatever you need to do. And then we might go out and see the opening band play a few songs because they start, let's say, at 8. We don't really have to get dressed until right before we go on. And all of our clothes are there for us. There's a wardrobe person who sets it all up in the morning. They wash it all, they hang it all. You just put it on and get on stage, and then you take it off and they take care of it. And it's honestly like, again, I'm specifically talking about at this level. When we're doing our own tours for just Jill and Kate, or even when we sang with other artists that weren't quite at the level of Kelly, this wasn't all necessarily taken care of the way it is on this tour, but we were very lucky in this one. So you get dressed, you get all ready, you go around, the band comes out, everyone comes out, you do a little powwow. We all do our high fives and we say a little prayer together and do a little like woohoo and rev it up. And then we get on stage, and that hour and a half or so is like what it's all for. But it hasn't even started. It's 9:00 at night, It's a long day, even though that might sound like it is fun. It's like, nothing about it is like, I'm not complaining about it, but it's a long day. And so by 9:00, and you have to have the most energy you can have at that hour. Luckily, we were young still, Some of the people that do this, like we toured with another guy that all his band was like in their 60s and 70s. Not all of them, but a few of them. And I remember being like, how are you guys doing this? Because I was at that point, I don't know, in my 30s even. And I was like, good grief, like I'm ready for bed, you know what I mean? But when you love it, it's exhilarating. And people do dream of doing this since they're a little kid. And it is a real high when you get on stage and the lights go down and the crowd starts to just get excited because they hear like the intro music. Kelly's shows always had a really cool long intro that was just exciting, and it built. And you feel the energy. There's nothing like that energy. And you just power through and you enjoy the show for an hour and a half, almost every show. Sometimes there's definitely times where you're like, I don't know, I don't have it in me tonight. I'm exhausted, or I'm going through a breakup, or, whatever it could be. And you have to find it because people pay the same amount to see that show, And there's less pressure, of course, on us as backup singers than the main artist or other people even in the band. But like, still, you are there to do your job and like give your all. And so you do the show and then you get off stage, and there's 2 options when you get off stage in this day. Okay. One, maybe you're running, they call it a runner, after the show because you have to catch a flight or you have to get to the next city faster. And so you have to beat the crowd leaving the venue. I would say this is the less common thing, but you might have to like jump off stage, run out, change real quick, throw your stuff, and like you get escorted to the bus and they like drive away before all the people leave the venue. That's a little stressful because it's just like you feel frenetic after that. That's rare. Usually that didn't happen. Usually you get off stage, you come down, you kind of get together with the band, you might discuss the show, like, oh, remember in this song that happened, or did you see that guy in the audience? Because yes, we can see you in the audience usually, and we are like, that guy was feeling it, or whatever. Rehash it a little bit, talk it out, and then get changed. The bus doesn't leave until like maybe midnight or 1 a.m. because the bus drivers have to sleep, right? So they're at a hotel. And so you have to kind of just like now kill time between, let's say, 10:30 and 1 a.m. So you change, you take a shower, and you're taking a shower at this venue. Like it might be a hockey dressing room. I know people might think like, wow, must be so glamorous, but you have flip-flops because you are wearing them in the shower, because a lot of times you're in like a group hockey shower, Some are better than others. Some of the venues have like nice dressing rooms with showers, but the bigger the venue, kind of the crappier the dressing room a lot of times. Well, that's not always true. Theaters can be pretty rough because they're so small. But you take a shower, you take all the makeup off. Like it's really funny because you put all this makeup on and get all glam. And then like an hour later, you take it all off and take a shower, because you can't sleep in it. And then you're going to go sleep on the bus, right? So you come down, have some drinks, hang out. Then you get on the bus because the bus is there, even though the bus driver isn't. So you can go out to the bus. Usually there's after show food because you're hungry at that point because you just did this whole show. So you eat, drink, hang out, do whatever you do with the band and the crew and everybody. And then you get in the little bunk. It's like a little coffin, but it's so cozy. And I prefer the bottom bunk on a bus. And you pull the curtain and the bus takes off and you go. I mean, you don't have to be in your bunk when it leaves. I'm just saying I couldn't really sleep unless the bus was moving. And that took learning as well, because people are like, how do you sleep in the bus? And it's like, you don't for the first, I don't know, couple nights. It's like, you think you're going to crash. You think you're dying. Like it's very disorienting. Then once you get used to it, it's like your favorite place to sleep. Sometimes I'd prefer sleeping on the bus than a hotel, even though the hotel's nice because you have your own space, you have your own room and you can get your introvert time. But the bunk is so cozy and there's a little TV in there and a little charger and lights, a little light. And it's loud because they have the air like blasting and it's cold. So you get under your blanket and it's cozy. It's magical. Living on a bus was something I never thought I would love, but I loved it. There were times it was hard, but it was so great. It was just this little like, I don't know, it just felt like a dream. It all felt like not real. And it wasn't real. Because the other thing people ask me a lot is like, what is one of the biggest challenges of living on the road? I think what it was for me, more so than the physical, like, yes, it's exhausting to do that every day at times, but it's also fun. They balance each other out. And your body gets tired, you get sick, it sucks, things like that. However, I think what was hardest for me, the biggest challenge that I didn't realize, especially the first couple years of touring like that full time, was like I really kind of screwed up my relationships during that time. I remember having to apologize to a lot of my friends a couple years into touring, like friends who were back home or family and things like that, where you're living this life that's so bizarre and weird. You're not kind of a normal person. And I don't mean that you're on a different level. It's just like you're not living in reality. And these people who are your friends and your people are living in reality. And they're like, what happened to Jill? And I don't think I like changed who I was or anything, but I just wasn't very good at communicating. I wasn't very good at like thinking outside of my own little bubble when I was on the road. And that was really hard. And it was also hard once you came off the road, because you'd think like, I'm going to come off the road and go back to normal life. But you hadn't been building a normal life at home. You had been building a life out on the road with 40 people or however many, 100 people, however many people are on the tour. And really a smaller group than that. Because when you're part of the band, you're really hanging out with like the band mostly. So that's a small group of people, maybe 15 or 20 people that you're really kind of building routines with, or less, fewer, probably like 3 people, honestly, you've built this routine with. And then you get home and you're like, oh, I'll see all my friends and my family, whatever. But they've been building this life without you and you don't really fit into it, but they don't really fit into yours. And it's this very strange dichotomy where you want to have both, but it's very hard to have both. And I couldn't figure that out for a long time. So that was a big challenge for me, honestly. And I think it was very foundational in even who I am now, where I'm just learning how to like settle into a life that's normal. And I say normal, like with a grain of salt, but it's like, I just don't even know. I almost feel like a beginner at life sometimes, even at this stage, because my formative years were so off the wall. And I wouldn't change it, like I said, for anything. But that was a really challenging thing. Like all the people around you, especially when you're in your 20s, they're doing these different things. They're building families and careers and lives. And you are out like party rocking, and it wasn't all that, but it kind of was. And so that was a challenge for me to figure out the balance there. I remember having a lot of regret of like, I missed a lot of birthdays and funerals and just building friendships in a normal way with the people I went to college with or even childhood friends. Like I missed a ton of weddings. I missed almost all my friends' weddings in my 20s because we were just gone all the time. And so there's a lot that you miss out on and a lot that you lose kind of when you're living this life in the music industry, but you're also gaining something you could never get anywhere else. So it's a balance and you have to be grateful for both. And there's good and there's hard and it's all surprising to me. It was nothing how I imagined. It was nothing. And it's all surprising because I was like, wow, I can't even compare this to anything. I don't even know how to compare this. And you sort of start to build your friendships around people who are also in this industry because they get it. And a lot of people just didn't get it. They thought it was cool or they wanted to come to shows or whatever. And I love that. But like when you're really trying to connect and build relationships, especially dating relationships, if they weren't on the road or like part of the music industry, it was really hard to figure that out. But then I also like you also, how do I say this? I didn't necessarily want to date a lot of people in the music industry. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Listen, I was one of them in the music industry. So I'm not saying like, we're just a little bit different. Okay, moving on. I also just want to clarify, this is my own experience. This isn't everyone's experience in the music industry because a lot of people are married and have families at home and they're touring. There's so many different versions of how this looks for people. This is just my experience. I just wanted to say that because I know there will be people listening who are in the industry and are like, I didn't experience it like that. But you should do your own episode because it is a crazy life and it's different for everybody. So I just wanted to put that little caveat in there. All right. Another question I get a lot is people want to know, like, what are your favorite behind the scenes stories like that you don't tell anyone, but like you could tell us. And they don't sound like that when they ask me. I don't know why I did that voice. But anyway, here's a few of my favorite behind the scenes stories. Okay. I can't tell everything. I'll never tell everything, but there's some fun ones that I think are worth telling. So, okay. One of my favorite encounters with a celebrity, and it was very brief, okay, but I grew up on Destiny's Child. I'm not like a huge Beyonce fan. Like I like Beyonce, but I loved Destiny's Child when it was the era of, Kelly Rowland, Michelle, and Beyonce. We were playing the X Factor. I think it was the X Factor. See, this is the stuff that you got to fact check me on. I should call Kate. It might have been like an Idol. We did a bunch of America because Kelly was American Idol. So we played like Spain Idol and Australian Idol and all of these different idols. I think this was X Factor in the UK, maybe. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But we played on all these shows, and Kelly Rowland was a judge on this particular show. So we were backstage. We were going to play Mr. Know-It-All on this show. And we had really cool, like a cool vibe for this show. Like we never went all out with wardrobe and makeup and all that, like once in a while. But this one in particular, all the band was in these black uniforms, like outfits. And we had these really tight our hair was pulled really tight and we had these like masks painted on our face and we looked kind of badass. I have to say that we did kind of look cool, and I don't ever think I'm cool. So we looked cool. We were all kind of decked out, and Kate and I were walking out to stage, and Kelly Rowland was there, and she passed us and she just stopped and she goes, "You girls look so fly." And I was like, I can die now. You know what I mean? I don't really care how this goes from here on out, because Kelly Rowland from Destiny's Child just said, "I look so fly." And that was a highlight. I can't ever prove it to anyone. Kate and I were the only ones who heard it. But we will say that to each other sometimes. Like if one of us is like looking cool or something, we'll be like, "Girl, you look so fly." But that was a highlight backstage. Okay, behind the scenes. What's another one? Oh, we were at the Tonight Show. I think it was the Tonight Show, you guys. This is the problem. We did so many performances during this time. I can't always remember if I'm like, was it David Letterman or was it the Tonight Show? Or is that David Letterman? I can't remember. I think it was Jay Leno. I don't know, guys. It doesn't matter. The story is what matters. So we were going out on stage to play, you know, you go to play like Jay Leno or whatever, Jimmy Fallon or whoever, and there's other guests on the show, right? So one of the other guests was Gerard Butler. You may know him from Gladiator or like the other big ones, but he was in this movie called P.S. I Love You, which was one of my favorite rom-coms back in the day. Anyway, so he was very handsome. And we were about to go on stage. This is really a Kate story more than mine, but we're about to go on stage and he was like introducing, shaking our hands, and he's like, "Call me Jerry." And we're like, "Okay, Jerry, we will call." No, Kate was like, "I will call you Jerry." No, Gerard Butler, like there wasn't like a deep connection or anything really, that I know of. But you just have these little moments and you're like, that was just a little moment. Call me Jerry. And that was a little encounter that was just fun to reminisce about. Okay, I have another good backstage story this was when we were playing with a different artist and we were in the elevator. We were playing at a casino. We were the backup singers and we were in the elevator with the bass player, the drummer, and a guitar player. We didn't have our stage clothes on or anything. We were just in our normal clothes, walking around, doing whatever for the day. And these people get in the elevator. They're like, "How you guys doing?" Whatever. And we're small talking a little bit. They don't know who we are or whatever. And the one guy is like, "Well, yeah, I'm actually the bass player for the show tonight." This guy has no idea that the bass player for the show tonight is literally with us. He's one of us we're all the band. But he was like, "Yeah, I'm the bass player, so we've got a show tonight here at the casino." And he names the artist who we're playing with, who's a big artist, you know? The bass player was like, "Oh, really? Tell me more." And which is perfect because this guy had no idea that he's telling all of us he's the bass player and we're the actual band. And this has happened. You might think, wow, that's so crazy. Why would anyone do that? And also like, what bad luck for him to try to like show off, you know, and he's actually caught. So I do think the bass player said something on the way out. Or if he didn't, I can't remember, because if he didn't, he would have seen the bass player on stage that night and been like, "Oh crap, I told him I was the bass player." But this happened to us one other time in Nashville. Kate and I were at this show, we were just there as audience members. Like we were just there for the show. And Jason was with us, who's Kelly's music director. And there were just a lot of drunk people there. I can't remember what it was for, but this drunk girl kind of comes up to us. Somehow Kelly Clarkson comes up and she has no clue, but she's like, "Oh my gosh, I sang backup for Kelly Clarkson." And we are Kelly Clarkson's backup singers at the moment. Jason had been Kelly's music director like since she won American Idol, basically. So he's known every backup singer. And this girl is like, "Yeah, I was their backup singer." And Jason's like, "Really? Which albums did you sing on or what tours?" And she starts listing them. And we are all just kind of like, and she was not like, nobody knew who this girl was. She was just totally BSing us, but she had no idea like who she was talking to. Worse, I don't know how much bad luck you could have. But this is why you don't lie either. You know what I mean? Like, was she trying to impress us? I don't know, but she didn't realize she was literally telling us she was Kelly's backup singer and we were her backup singers. Anyway, and so Jason's like, oh, well, you should meet Jill and Kate. They're also Kelly's backup singers. And he took off and the girl looked at us like, oh crap, you know? But I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me. I thought that story would only happen once, but it makes you go like, wow, a lot of people are out there just lying that they do these things. They're just like, yeah, I sing backup for Kelly Clarkson. And they don't, you know? What motivates someone to do that? I don't know. Anyway, that was another little behind the scenes story that I love telling. Guys, this is getting long. I haven't even gotten to listener questions or top 5. Okay. This is why we're going to do 2 parts for this. Okay. So I'm going to hold out other stories for part 2. Let's move on. I hope you're enjoying this. If not, then don't tune in for part 2 because it's going to be more of the same. But I'll get more detailed in part 2 of like specific stories and stuff like that. Oh my gosh, this list that I have so many more things to talk about. Okay. Like remind me, I'm going to talk about Kimmy Gibbler in episode 2. Just come back for that one. Okay. You know, from Full House, you know Kimmy Gibbler. Come on. All right, let's move on to top 5 because we got to get through this episode or it's never going to end. You know, I could talk for days on this. Okay, top 5 shows or venues I've been able to play. This is tough, okay, guys. I made the list and I realized I left the Bluebird off of it, which is definitely one of my favorite venues. So I don't know, we're just going to go for it. Okay, top 5 venues. Number 5 is Madison Square Garden. We played Madison Square Garden for one of those like jingle ball, I don't know what they're called. Winter ball. What are those things called? I think it's the Jingle Ball. And these radio shows put on, you know, different tours around Christmas. And I think like Demi Lovato played and the Jonas Brothers and like Kelly and whoever else. I can't remember. But there was something about checking Madison Square Garden off of my list of venues of just like, wow, that's a pretty iconic place to play. I'm going to remember this one. And I told you a Kardashian would come back up in this episode, and now's the moment. Okay. So we're sitting backstage and it's just like a green room kind of thing. It's all open. All these random celebrities and stuff are walking around. I don't remember if it was like Ryan Seacrest or whoever hosted it. And then all these people that you're just like, this is so bizarre. Why am I back here? You know, like I don't belong here. 'Cause like I'm not famous. Okay. Like I'm just singing on stage, but like you're around all these famous people and they don't know who you are, but you know who they are, and that's weird, you know? So we're sitting there and all of a sudden in walks Khloe Kardashian and a couple of her people who now I might know who they are, but then I didn't know. And she just sits down next to us and I can't remember who all was there. It was just the band, I guess. And we're just like kicking it with Khloe Kardashian. And she was so nice and so normal and just like asking us questions and talking. And I was like, wow, I could be friends with her. I liked her vibe, you know? I wish I would have told her, don't let your little sister be the Duncan spokesperson. It's not a good match, you know? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was number 5 after my tangent, Madison Square Garden. Number 4 is going to be the Ryman in Nashville. And I'm actually going to make it the Ryman / the Grand Ole Opry, because sometimes they have the Grand Ole Opry at the Ryman. I have played both. There's the Grand Ole Opry out at Opryland and Ryman, the Ryman. The Grand Ole Opry was pretty iconic because it's the Grand Ole Opry. And we actually played that with a different artist, not Kelly. We sang at the Grand Ole Opry, I think a couple times. And just being on that stage is sort of like historic or something. I don't know. It just felt special and that was cool. I never imagined I would ever play at the Grand Ole Opry. Ever. I never even probably heard of it when I was a kid, to be honest. And then the Ryman is this beautiful theater in Nashville, right downtown. And I had been to a bunch of shows there, but I hadn't played there. And I think I've played there a few times now, but we played there on the last date of the first Kelly tour we did. And that was so cool. That venue is the mother church, obviously. So it's like a spiritual experience. So that was pretty cool. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 3 is Uncle Buck's Rock and Roll Grill. And no, I'm just kidding. Number 3 is Wembley Arena in London. Part of this was because it was our last show with Kelly and it was just a sentimental show for me. But Wembley. It's Wembley. You're in London and you're playing at Wembley Arena. Like, who are you? You know what I mean? I don't know. Even when I talk about it now, I'm like, was this my life or no? I don't know, because it's kind of a whirlwind. But that venue was awesome to play at, and it was a great crowd. And I think we played at Wembley Stadium as well. We did, but that was for a different event with like a bunch of artists. Wembley Arena was just the Kelly show. So that's number 3, Wembley in London. We got to play a bunch in the UK with Kelly, and then Kate and I played a bunch in the UK on our own as well. Gosh, I love the UK. Hello, all my UK people out there. I want to come play so bad in the UK. I loved it. Maybe bucket list that for me. All right, number 2 is going to be Red Rocks in Colorado. Why? Because that venue is insane. Have you ever been there? Red Rocks is like the coolest venue. It's kind of terrifying to sit up in the audience, because I went to see Patty Griffin there, and it's like a little, like, if you're scared of heights, it's a little scary, but it's like built into the mountains kind of. I don't know how to explain it. And then backstage, all of the dressing rooms are like stone caves. It's just very cool. And Red Rocks, it's just an iconic venue. It feels magical, and it's outside where you're just like, I did like playing outside as long as it wasn't super hot. Sometimes we would play these fairs and stuff, and it was like, or amphitheaters in the middle of summer, and you're just like sweating under the lights. So that wasn't, but Red Rocks was, I think it was kind of cool, because it's like, it's Colorado, you know? So that would be number 2, Red Rocks. Okay. And then the number 1 venue that I've been able to play, this might come as a surprise. Okay. But it's true. I've played in a lot of your guys' living rooms, like in your homes or in your backyards, because we did a tour called the Songs and Stories Tour, where Kate and I went, and you could request us to come play a house show at your house. And I know there's people listening who we've been to your house and we did this. So that was so fun. And there's something about being welcomed into like people's families and homes and all their friend groups. And people would bring over like 30, 40, 50 people sometimes into their backyard, and we would play a show. And maybe all their friends didn't know us, you know, and just the person who hosted it was a fan of ours or whatever. And we got to meet all your people, and like you guys would make us food and, you know, just like fun stuff. And I honestly, I've played a lot of cool places and like traveled a lot of cool places. But what I love about doing music is connecting with people. You might find that surprising, because you might be like, Jill's an introvert and she likes to isolate. And it's not really true. It is true a little bit, but like I loved the tour where we would just come into your homes and play for you guys, like on your couches. And, you know, it was just different and fun and like comfortable, even though you might think that sounds uncomfortable. It's like too close for comfort, but it was really special. And so that would be number 1. My top venue played your living room when we did our Songs and Stories tour. There it is, guys. That's a top 5. Okay. Listener questions. I have been answering some of them throughout. Okay. But there's so many. I feel like I need to do a whole episode just of your questions, but we'll see. Okay. Here we go. How do you keep yourself motivated doing the same songs over and over, night after night? That's a great question. Some nights you don't, like you're not motivated because you're like, oh my gosh, this song again. Not usually. And we would build sets around like hopefully enjoying most of the songs, you know? And same with like when we would sing with other people. Someone's building out the show so that it's enjoyable for the most part, you know, to perform too. But I think what it is like, there's a new audience every night and you're connecting and playing for those people. And so it's really not about you. It's about like, how am I delivering this as good as I did last night for the people who were there? And I want to do it again for the people who are here tonight. And so it is tough sometimes. Sometimes you're just like, oh gosh, I don't want to play this song again, but you just do it. You know, it's sort of like any job you have. You're like, I don't want to fill out this report again, but you just do it, you know? Next question. I've been rewatching the show Nashville. Have you seen it? I'm wondering if it's at all realistic. Is life as a singer-songwriter or recording artist anything like what the show portrays, or is it mostly dramatized for TV? That's a great question. I remember when Nashville came out, the show, we were in Europe and we watched the pilot on the bus. We had a double-decker bus and we went upstairs and we watched the pilot, and it was so weird seeing like our hometown and this show all about it, is just like, what? And Chip Deacon on the show is a good friend. So it was fun to watch him just kind of, I don't know, when you're friends on TV, you're like, that's so weird. That's not really him, but it is. I don't know. So Nashville, the show, yeah, a lot of it is pretty close, I would say. I mean, it's definitely dramatized, but I'd have to rewatch it, honestly. It's been a while since I've seen it, but they do depict certain things that, yeah, like Nashville is like that a little bit. Like you are writing in some random house. I talked about that on one of my episodes. Like a lot of the songs are written in homes. Like it's not a fancy studio all the time, or yeah, there are affairs and like situations between musicians because it's a very like intimate and intense thing that you're doing, creating music and like touring together and all this stuff. So some of that stuff, yeah, it kind of is real life about Nashville. I'm not saying it all is, but I would say it's close. And then there's some things where you're just like, no, it's never like that. I can't think of anything. I'll rewatch it and I'll give you a better answer to that. But that's a good question. I got to rewatch that show. It's been a while. Okay, next question. What's the most obnoxious thing you've seen or heard about on a hospitality rider? Also, what was on your hospitality rider? Oh man, see, I didn't get to see a lot of the riders so a rider is like a list of stuff you give that you want in your dressing room. Because like I said, you're on the bus every night and then you're in a different dressing room every night. And so you have this list of like, I want to have, wine and I need water. And that was pretty much our list. No. And we would have like peanut butter and jelly and fruit and I can't even remember, stuff like that. Because it is important to have some consistency and routine when you're living a life like this. So the rider is actually really important. It might seem, I know a lot of people think like, oh, like Janet Jackson only had brown M&Ms. I don't know if that's who it was, but you hear these stories like Mariah Carey only wanted red Skittles on her rider. And the reason people do stuff like that is to make sure that people are actually paying attention to what they asked for. So I don't think I do have one thing. I can't say who it is. Okay, no, I actually can't tell this story. It's not about anyone I worked for, but I have heard of a few crazy rider stories that people want wild things on there. I can't say, okay, I'm sorry, but it would be a good story if I could tell it. Next question. Do you miss being a backing singer for Casey, or are you glad you're a solo artist now? No, I'm glad I've done all the things I've done. And I'm really, honestly, it's been so long. I don't miss it. I mean, I miss some of the people and some of the experiences, but like I had the experience and I am so grateful for it. And I'm glad to be doing my own thing and really enjoying that part of it too. So I don't miss it in a way of like, oh, I pine for it or anything like that. I have good memories of it and it's like I think of it fondly, but I'm also happy to be in the season that I'm in. I am glad that I did it though. I think about if I never did the backup singing thing or worked for Kelly, that formed so much of my life, so I'm so grateful for it. Okay, next question. Have you ever felt intimidated working with an artist because you admired them so much? That happened to me recently when Amy Grant sang the song that I wrote, Home, for the RJ Halbert book, the audiobook. Amy Grant was like my childhood idol. And then I wrote this song and then she ended up singing it like on the Kelly show and she released the single of the song that I wrote, which was amazing. Like this was, I think 2 years ago now. Not even, I think it was last year. I don't know. My years are messed up. I think it was last year. So she sang it and I got to go to the studio and like be there while she recorded it and stuff. And then be at the Kelly Clarkson show when she played it live on TV. And I really didn't have to do anything. Like I had already written the song, but I was intimidated just being in her presence because I'm like, you were my childhood idol and now you're singing my song. And so yes, that is someone I was intimidated by. That was a good question. Next question. Did you ever experience stage fright? Yeah, a little bit. No, I don't think it's really stage fright. Like I never was going to like run off stage or anything, but I would have some anxiety, especially on like live TV performances. Those are the ones that kind of got me where I was like, there's cameras in your faces and, all that stuff. As far as like touring and stuff, I didn't really get stage fright because you just get so used to it. It's just like any other job at the end of the day. I know that sounds weird, but it became very normal to just be on stage. That being said, I do feel like I have stage fright now because the other day, people keep asking me like, are you going to play out soon? Like, I want to see you play a show. And I'm like, maybe I have stage fright now. You know, I feel like I'm getting it now because it's been so long, but I haven't played really in front of a lot of people. So a little bit. Okay, next question. When you see the reels of all the amazing singer-songwriters trying to make it in this cruel streaming world just on a music career, do you feel bad for them? This person said, I do. Do I feel bad for them? I don't know. I think it's brave in this era right now to just like get out there and sing on TikTok and do all that stuff because there's so much of it. It's so oversaturated. I do think anyone who's like trying to figure it out and just get out there and sing it and like put themselves out there, it's brave and it's hard. It's not how it was when I was coming up in music. Like we didn't have the opportunity really to get online and really, I mean, we did. There was like YouTube and there was Stage It shows, which was a big thing, but it wasn't like Instagram and TikTok were heavy on, it wasn't how people broke into the music industry at all. Now I find all my music on TikTok kind of, you know, so not all of it, but I find a lot there. So I do feel bad in that it's oversaturated, but I also think like it's a cool opportunity and you have the ability to reach way more people from your living room or bedroom or whatever than we ever had. Like we were out playing Uncle Buck's Rock and Roll Grill, which is it's just different, you know? I think anyone who's brave enough to kind of share their music with the world, I give them credit because it's harder than you would think, I guess. It's vulnerable and it's like, there are a lot of really good people out there. There's so many people out there that are so much better singers than I am, that are so much better at writing than I am. You know what I mean? And it's like, that could stop me at any time. And I think that for anyone, it's like, if you don't let it stop you, I think that's brave of you. So go get it. Go get it, guys. All right. There's so many more questions, but I'm going to just do one more and then we're going to save some for part 2. Okay. Last question of the day. How do you pick a song to be the single? I love this question because it's really not about touring. And I didn't even get into really, I really just talked about touring in this episode. So sorry about that because there's so much more to it, like the recording process and all of that. But how do you pick a song to be a single? It really depends on who's picking it. If you're an independent artist, you know, you and your producer and maybe you have management or something, you kind of like pick a song that there's usually one that sort of clearly floats its way to the top. It's just the most single worthy song. Usually that happens. But I think there's a few things. Like if you're going to radio, you have to pick one that it might not be your best song or your favorite song, but it might be the most like commercially friendly song or a lot of times first singles especially are more up tempo. Like you don't often see someone drop their first single as a ballad. It's just not that common. It can happen, but it has to be a really freaking good ballad to be a lead single, I would say. So I think you pick a single as something that like, if new people are going to hear your music, this is the song that might draw them in the most. That's how I would usually pick a single. I don't know if that's the right way. That's just how I would do it. I hope that answers your question. All right, guys, this is probably my longest episode to date. And we now have to take a Jill pill before we go. So let's do it. All right, my Jill pill for the day is this, okay? Don't be mean to yourself. Like, stop putting yourself down. Be nice to yourself. It's okay. It's okay to be nice to yourself. That's it. That's my whole Jill pill. I don't know. I just see some people, some of my friends, like, just like being hard on themselves. And I'm like, don't do that. And I do it too. Just be nice to yourself. Like, you're a good person. You know that, you know? You wouldn't talk to someone else sometimes the way you talk to yourself. So just be nice to yourself, okay? That's it. All right, guys, thank you for listening. I appreciate all the questions. I know I didn't get to even like half of them, so don't worry if I missed yours. I will get to more, and I will cover more about other sides of the music industry next time, because there's so much, there's stories that I have written down that I wanted to tell today and I just didn't get to. So I will, and let me know if you like this kind of episode too or not. All right, you can find me at JiPi Music on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all the things, and Take a Jill Pill podcast on Instagram. You can go to takeajillpill.com if you want to send me a message or anything like that. And if you want to leave me a rating and review, you go right ahead. It helps other people find it too, so I appreciate that. I also have some exciting Take a Jill Pill news coming soon, so I'm working on a little something that I think is fun. So hang tight for that. And I hope you have a great week. That's it for today, guys. Until next time, be good. Take a Jill Pill.